right, you don't really have to know these terms, but I'm just going to show you because they're here. This is the radical sign. Okay, we always just call it a square root. The problem with that is we don't always deal with a square root. All right, we might have a cube root, fourth root, like I said. This is the index, and they call that a radicand. I don't know that I'll ever say those words, okay? But there they are. But this deals with degree, okay? It's going to take some practice. What we're doing today is a little weird. So we're going to find all the real roots of some of these numbers. And the first one we're going to start with is a cube root, okay? Yes, you can use your calculator as well, all right? But you need to understand these concepts. If it is an odd root, cube root, that's a 3. Isn't a 3 an odd number? If it's a fifth root, that's an odd number, right? If it's a seventh root, odd number. Anyway, if it's an odd number root, your answer, you're only going to have one answer, okay? You're only going to have one answer if it's an odd root. All right, we'll find our answer, and that's that. It can be positive. It can also be negative. All right, the reason it can be negative, like what is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2? Can anybody tell me what that answer is?
Negative 6.
Negative 8.
Yeah.
So I would say the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. I'll explain again in a second. But I'm just saying, like, there's only one answer. If I'm looking for the cube root of negative 8, it would be negative 2. If I was looking for the cube root of 8, it would be 2. So if anytime it's an odd number right here, the little root, okay, then it's only going to be one answer. Is everybody okay with that? It's either a negative answer or it's a positive answer. If that number is negative, guess what it's going to be? A negative answer. If that number is positive, guess what it's going to be? A positive answer. Okay? Are we good so far? Yes, maybe. These aren't even my examples. My real examples. Can I erase? And that's why I put those numbers up over there, because they can kind of help us. And again, you can use your calculator, but sometimes it doesn't give you all the possible answers. Okay, so their first problem, I think they start with a cube root. It says, what are the real cube roots of, and they start with this number, 0.0, let me find it, 0.08. Okay, and it's positive. So the cube root, if I was to write it, they just write it out in the words, what's the cube root? But I can write it like this. What's the cube root? That's a little 3. How many answers are there going to be? Just one answer. Does everybody understand that? Look, if you don't know it, put it in here. Okay? So, what is it? 0.2. It's 0.2. All right? It's kind of similar because 2 times 2 times 2 is what? 8. So, anyway, put it in your calculator. Do y'all know how to put that in your calculator? Yes. The cube root, do I know how? I think I have to press math. Yeah. Cube root, there it is, of 0.008. And it is 0.2. Now, you can't just rely on your calculator because it's asking for several possibilities. Your calculator may only give you one. Okay? So, but we know if it's an odd number, there's one answer. Odd root.
Wait, how do you get to that?
There is one. Okay? Again, you press math. And then you see that number 4. Look, number 5, you can pick your number. Like, see my number 5, how it has an X right there? So that means I can pick what number goes there. Like if I need a 4th root or a 5th root or whatever. Okay? So is everybody good with the first problem? Let's do the next one. I want the cube root of negative 1,000. How many answers are there going to be? 2. Nope. It's a cube root, so it's one answer. Can you do that on your calculator?
Yeah.
But without it, does anybody have a guess what it would be?
Negative 10.
Negative 10. Did you use your calculator?
Yeah.
Okay. But some of y'all, I'm hoping, would know, 10 times 10 times 10. But your answer is going to be negative 10. Any questions so far? Again, our rule, if it's an odd root, there's one answer. If it's an odd root, there is one answer. Your calculator's going to get it right. Okay? Last cubed root of 1 over 27. Okay, well the cube root of 1 is what? 1. And any guess on the cube root of 27? 3. Did you use your calculator? Good job. But if you use your calculator, it's fine. All right. Math internet. Any questions or are we good?
Wait, can you do that one more time?
This one, yes. I just said, what's the cube root of 1? And I knew 1 times 1 times 1. So I got 1. I'll show you my calculator too. And then the cube root of 27, y'all look up there on the cube roots. Look with the 27, what number's with it? 3. So see, I've also got the answers up here on the board. I'll show you on the calculator too. But like, what's the cube root of 27? 3. What's the cube root of 64? 4. What's the cube root of 125? Okay, what's the fourth root of 81? 3. So see, I kind of have a little cheat sheet here for you. Let me show you what it looks like on the calculator though, because I don't even know how it does the answer. If I do the cube root of 1 over 27. Now watch, if I press enter, it's probably going to give me a decimal. But if I press math enter, it's going to give me the fraction back. Okay? Everybody's good so far? All right. There's lots of examples today, lots of them. Okay, the next one says, what are the fourth roots? So, I've got a few rules for these. When it's an even root, there can be 2 answers or no answers. All right? Let me make sure that that's the only options. These are there 2 real. They say it's so crazy. I don't like how they say it. What is a real root? Yeah.
0 or
So yeah, so if it's an even root, this is how I'm going to say. I'm trying to say it different than they do. The book, if I showed you the words, it's crazy. If it's an even root, there's 2 options. It can either have no solution, or how do they word it? They say no real roots. Is that what they said? No real roots. They say no real roots, or there's 2. Okay? So that's just something to remember. I would kind of make those notes so you know if it's an odd root, it's just like what all the problems we just did. Now, if we have an even root, we've got these 2 options to go by, and I'm going to show you examples of both. Okay? Are y'all ready? So I'm going to do, on all these problems, they want us to do fourth roots. So they want me to find the fourth root of 1. Okay? So that means what times what times what times what is 1? 1. So it's going to have 2 answers. It's 1 and negative 1. Because what's negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1? It's also still positive. I know that's like a mouthful. So, does that make sense? If you get an answer, it's also going to be negative, okay? So, we'll see the problem when it's none in just a second. What can you not have under a square root? A negative. So, under a fourth root, you can't have a negative. Under a sixth root, under an even root, you can never have a negative. Can you have a negative under an odd root? Yes, you can. We just did some of those. Is it a lot? Is it too much? Mm-hmm. That's why I'm trying to just show you those 2 options. Okay, so let's do the next one. They have the fourth root of negative 0.001. Oh, there was actually another 0. Sorry, it's 3 zeros and then a 1. So can you put in your calculator, actually. Just put error. Why is there an error? Because you can't have a negative. So you would say no real roots, or no roots.
You have to do anything if it was a negative with a positive or even thing.
So yeah, if it's an even number and it's negative under here, it's no roots. But put it in your calculator and it's going to help you. Okay. Let's try another one. Let's try 16 over 81. Look, I'm not going to use my calculator. I'm going to go by my board up there. What's the fourth root of 16? Look over there on the board. 2. And what's the fourth root of 81? 3. And if that's one of my answers, what's my other answer? Negative 2/3. Okay? Does this make sense? Yes. We can completely take. Y'all want me to put everything back up or just this little part? Just okay. Do y'all need more of these? Yeah, I might can do, like, give y'all a few to try in between. That one's real. None of these are asking for. I don't know why some of these didn't ask for it. Do y'all want to try 1, 2, and 3 before we move on? Sorry, no. Just look. You can type in your calculator if you want to. 4th root, math it, or enter. Or I went over here to my 4th roots. What's the 4th root of 16? 2. What's the 4th root of 81? 3. Does that make sense? Or just put in your calculator. Look, I'm going to pause the video. I'll let y'all try 1, 2, and 3. Yes.
Can I go get my calculator?
Now it's resumed. Now it's paused. And I got to plug this in. What's the square root of negative 2? Well, first of all, what is negative 2 squared? 4. So kind of work. They tried to trick you. So you want to plug that in. Hold on. Let me write that down. I don't want this to die on my recording. There we go. Okay, so I would just rewrite it. The square root of 4, and it's just 2. They didn't want 2 and negative 2 listed. Okay, are we good with those? Do I need to do any more examples of those? No, I guess not. Okay, the next part, let's see how I want to say this. I'll put this up here and then I'll just do some examples. If you look down at some of those other problems, they're kind of weird because they start to have some absolute value bars. I honestly think once we get to the test, I can't remember that there's any on there like that, but I'll go ahead and teach it. Just don't freak out if we don't quite understand the absolute value bars. But there's these rules, and it just says you just write this if n is odd. But you would use the absolute value bars if the n is even. I'll show you some examples in a second on what it's talking about, okay? But that's kind of the rule. You don't use the absolute value bars if it's odd. You do use the absolute value bars if it's even. Okay? And this is with exponents. This is dealing, not numbers, not like the whole numbers out front, not coefficients. That's what I should say. This is dealing with like x to the 8th power or x squared or whatever. Okay?
So wait, is n going to be the same number?
No, I'll show you an example in a second. N is not this. I see what, that's why it's so confusing on that. Like it doesn't.
Okay. Like a different letter?
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay, which n is that one talking about?
Because on number 7, it's
Let's see.
27x squared
Like
15.
little side
It's
of it.
odd, so you don't.
It's gonna be underneath the It's gonna be under what's underneath the root. But I'll do some examples to show you. It's talking about but we do a few things to it that's under the root. But whenever.
So what isn't?
So like on 724 is even, but they don't, like we don't use absolute value bars.
Hold on, let me look at my page. Because I'll show you when I get there. Because we're going to have to divide some things too. So let me show y'all just some examples. That's why I almost didn't even show you this part. Okay, let's just do some examples and maybe that'll help y'all. Again, it's confusing every year. So please don't let it freak you out. All right. Here's my first example. I have, and I don't really want you concentrating on the absolute value. Right now, I need you to concentrate on exponents. That's the first thing that y'all need to learn. So if I have the square root, this is the square root of 16, and then I've got x to the 8th. Okay? And then I actually have some ways that I'll teach you that I do this that are a little bit easier later. First of all, can everybody figure out the square root of 16? Yeah, what is that? 4. Is everybody good with that? 4. Now, what you do with these exponents is you divide them. Okay? Does everybody understand that? This exponent is what? 8. And this is a square root. That means it's a 2. So what is 8 divided by 2? 4. So it's just x to the 4th. And that's your answer. And that one's. Yes, I've got like 6 of these that we're about to do. Okay?
So basically, you find the square root of 16.
Yeah, you find the square root of that number, and then for the powers, ignore the absolute value for just a minute. I'll go over that in a second. When you have an exponent, you just divide it. Okay? But there is a trick. We're not to that yet, but eventually I'll show you a trick as well, because it gets a little bit harder. Now, anytime you have an odd, you don't index, I said I wouldn't use that word, an odd root, that's what I'm going to call it, you don't use absolute value bars. Anytime there's an odd root. The only time you're going to deal with the absolute value if you have an even root. Okay, so I told y'all I would get to it, but right now, again, I wrote that down. That's a 9. That's a b to the 9th. Right now, I just want us to get used to dividing. So, what do you do with exponents? You divide. Is everybody good with that? So, what's 6 divided by 3? 2. And then that's a 9. I'm sorry. What's 9 divided by 3? 3. Okay? Is everybody okay with that one? I think we have one in we'll have one in a second where we do an absolute value. Now, okay, this one was fine. We didn't need an absolute value because we have even. That's an odd root. You don't deal with absolute value. Let's do this next one. The 4th root of x to the 8th and y to the 12th. Yeah. And I'll go over that in a second. Now, we divide. That's the main thing. I just need you to know if you mess up the absolute value, don't worry about it. What is 8 divided by 4? 2. And what is 12 divided by 4? 3. Is everybody good so far? Now, for those of you who were wondering, this is where the absolute value comes in. When you ended up with an odd exponent from an even root. Because you want to make sure it's positive is why. Is that, I know it's weird. I know it's weird. Okay.
So if you have an even exponent and you get an odd
answer. Yeah. So if it's an even root and you get an odd answer, you can think of it that way. Put your absolute value bars on there. Okay. You want me to say that again? If you have an even root, and you get an odd exponent answer. That's when you'll use absolute value bars, okay? So this one had an even root. Did I have an odd exponent answer? Yes. That one didn't even have an even root. This one had an even root, but no odd answer. So Again, I'm not concerned about the absolute value bars. I'm concerned with you being able to divide. Can everybody divide? Like understand the dividing part? Yes, no? I'm going to do a few more. Chloe, are you good now on those? Because you asked for extra. Okay. Like the square root of 81 x to the 4th. Okay, y'all, what's the square root of 81? 9. Is everybody good with that? Now, for your variable, are y'all listening? What's 4 divided by 2? 2. That's why it's x squared. And there's no odd exponent. Yes. Stop. You want me to stop? Okay.
Are you gonna do one with an autumn?
It's oops, with an odd index. Was there one on your paper?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, with an odd index, I did one. You can't have an absolute. You won't have an absolute value answer ever with an odd index. Like this one right here has an odd. It won't. You don't put an absolute value. Or is there something on the paper that? Let me make
I was
sure.
just on number 7 and I didn't know if like the Y.
Yeah. So number 7, it should be. Yeah. There's only one answer possible because an odd index isn't going to have absolute value.
We don't have to worry about that.
And y'all, honestly, like for some reason, we worry about the absolute value right now, but then later on, we don't even deal with that anymore. So that's why I'm not too. Oh, I don't know yet. I don't know. I'll look at that one in a second with y'all. Have y'all been able to do all the others except 8 and 4? Okay. Do we need another example or two? We do of these? Yes, you do. Okay. So I want to make sure the main part is just knowing to divide. If I have the cube root of a to the 12th, b to the 15th, no absolute value on that one because it's an odd index or an odd root. So do y'all know how to simplify it? What's 12 divided by 3? A to the 4th. And what is 15 divided by 3? There we go. You just divide. V is volume. But I don't know if that's what you're asking me. Oh, it is? Okay. Do y'all want one more? Yes. Okay, so we have a 4th root. All right, y'all be quiet. Let's make sure everybody can get this. We've got x to the 12th and y to the 16th. So, again, we just divide. They're keeping it where they're all divisible today. So, what's 12 divided by 4? 3. So, I'm just going to write x to the 3rd. We'll come back to that. And then what's 16 divided by 4? Y to the 4th. Now, the only thing we've learned with absolute value, when you get an odd answer from an even root, you just put that on there. Okay, yes?
Whenever I have a number that's like number 3.
Number 3, let me
And it
see.
starts with 81x.
Uh-huh.
How do I get that?
So, you're on 3 on the short answer? On the back? Okay. So, for the 81, what is the 4th root of 81? So, you can look up there on the 4th roots. Do you see it? It's 3. So, it's going to be 3. Or you could have typed that in your calculator. Does that help you with that part?
Yes, ma'am.
And then do the x and y just like on here. Just divide them. Okay?
So it would be 3x to the 5th.
3, yeah, x to the 5th. That's right. And then what? Let me write it down. 3 x y to the 2nd. Now, did you get an odd answer from an even root?
Yes, ma'am.
So you put an absolute value on it. Is that what y'all got for number 3? Okay.
Just the x.
Just the x to the 5th. Just like that. And again, y'all, I really don't. Oh, like that? Oh, like this. Oh, there you go. Is that good? And those are absolute value bars. Okay, let's see about this volume thing. And y'all, we're almost done with today. Usually it is awful. This lesson.
They taught you.
No, I mean, not this problem necessarily, just this lesson. It's such a big change of pace, I think, is going from parabolas and maximum and minimums to now like exponents and variables. So it's just a big change. Let me see. Do we have 2 volume questions? We do. So I might do number 4 and let y'all do number 8.
Can you do the harder one?
Well, I was just going to do the short. Are they, let me see. They basically, you want me to do number 8 or 4?
Do the harder one.
Well, I don't know which one. They're about the same. You're just plugging it in, I think, and finding the answer. I'll do number 4. Here's number 4, short answer. Is anybody still writing all that? No? Okay. Number 4 says, the formula for the volume of a sphere. There we go. Volume is 4/3 pi r to the third. Find the radius. And they tell me volume, the V is what? 15. So I'm going to plug in 15. This is number 4. Now, I've got to solve for R, and this is weird because this is kind of, I think, more like what we're doing way later. But we'll go ahead and solve. How would I solve for R? What do I need to move? On mine, I need to move pi and 4/3. Does everybody see that? I need to move it over here. So this is all on your calculator. If it's being multiplied to R, how do you move it? Divide. So this looks crazy, but I'm just going to divide by that. Okay, I have no idea what that's going to be. So watch, I'm going to put this all in my calculator. It looks like a big mess. I don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to say 15 divided by, and I'm going to do 15 divided by 4/3 pi. It's right above the division sign. I wonder if that works like that.
I'm using a different number.
15 divided by 4/3 pi. And I'm going to see what it gives me. I hope this is right. Let me see if that's going to look right. I think that's looking right. Okay. Does everybody understand what I just did? Does everybody understand how to solve for R? What needs to be moved? 4/3 pi. Do we understand that? In order for R to be by itself, these two things have to be moved. So you do the opposite. Since it's being multiplied, you must divide it over. And I just put all that on my calculator. I don't want to do that in my head. Okay? So I get 3.58. This right here is what's important. How do you go from R cubed to R? What's the opposite of cubing something? What did we learn today? Cube roots. I could have put it in wrong. Hold on, let me try it again.
That's what I got.
I got 35.3.
I'll make sure 15 divided by 4/3 pi. I got the same answer. That's right.
I think I put my pie outside.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it probably multiplied by pi instead of dividing. That's what happened. Now, you have to, in order to solve for R, and this is actually what comes way later in the chapter, I think, whenever it has a cube, the opposite of cubing something is to cube root it. What's the opposite of squaring something? Square root it. Okay? So anytime you'll just do, so this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to cube root both. That's weird, but so R equals, and I'm just going to type that in my calculator. Math, the cube root of 3.58. So they got 1.53. That's exactly what they got. 1.53. Real quick, I want y'all to try number 8. They might have a little bit more, but you can handle it. Try number 8 and see what you get. And if I need to go over it, I sure will. I'll pause this.